And what does it mean for development? Well, the way the development community responded was putting in a lot of these UN troops and eventually getting there to be an election. And wonders of wonder, Mr. Kabila was killed, but his son took over, and his son got elected president of the country. And the country now, basically, people portray it as sort of a democracy, but the reality is it's has some reforms going on, it has activities going on, but it still has this awful, terrible situation where literally millions of people are terrorized on an ongoing basis, particularly in the East. Now, when you look at it, why is it so important as a case study? Well, this is a country in some ways that has everything. It had resources, it had agriculture, it had good health, it had industry, education. It still has a school of public health that's very, very good, and there are educated Congolese all over the world. It used to have employment when it had functioning industry. What doesn't it have? Well, it's never had responsible government. It's never had governance that really cared about its people and was tied to anything but immediate individual uh, uh, profit. And that's the problem today. If you look at what you might call the table, people who are sitting around the table, running the Congo or deciding about the Congo, they all got a piece of the action, and those who don't have a piece of the action don't have a place at the table. What is really the reason that can explain this? Some people like to say, well, it's because they're so resource rich. But Botswana is a country that's resource rich, and none of this is true of Botswana. Now, I'm going to give you two explanations of why I use it as a case study for the class. One, I do feel that we stress empathy in this class, and Congolese society has been so numbed over and over again by various things that happen to it that empathy beyond the immediate group is limited. And you get these militias, and it's incredible how brutal they can be. And they don't see themselves. It's amazing. They very often don't see themselves as brutal. These soldiers will say, well, of course I rape, I have sexual drives, I'm away from my family, how am I supposed to solve them? But I present that there's another reason as well. You know, in Bali, we studied about how they have calendars for months, years, and 100 years. They have a sense of time. Uh, and time is what gives us morals and purpose. If we only live for today, it's only about daily survival. If we see the meaning of our lives tied not to ourselves, but our futures and future generations, we can establish foundational principles like the Balinese that let us make sure that what we do today corresponds to other needs and meanings over time. That is gone in the Congo. And as an epitome of that, I show my class a picture of my parrot from the Congo, who I call Lobi. And Lobi means tomorrow and yesterday in Lingala. And I use this, it's my analogy, that tomorrow and yesterday are the same. In reality, there's today and not today. And unless you know that you're working for something of meaning tomorrow, and you build upon your experiences of what worked and didn't yesterday, you can't build foundational principles in which to structure the institutions, in this case, the institutions of governance. So, with the exception of the religious groups, who are the only ones who have foundational principles, and that there's the Catholic Church, there's the Kabangist Church, there's been the Mennonites. These are the only groups left that have institutional structure of any meaning in the Congo in terms of providing goods and services. Now, supposedly you have a government that's going to change. Well, we'll see. In 2011, there's supposed to be an election. Mr. Tshisekedi, 77 years old, says he's going to run. It'll be interesting to see whether this time around you have a real election or it doesn't really happen and the international community lets it go. And why does the international community let it go? Because today the concept of sovereignty serves as a barrier for needed intervention. And the concept of national security actually is used as an excuse for doing things that should be intolerable under the morals and ethics of a foundational principle of human security, which says that all human beings have rights to certain things, not only food and water and dignity. And what I recommend to the class is to begin to make a difference in a place like a Congo. the world and the international community has to begin changing its concepts of security away from national security and sovereign security to human security for all people. Now, lastly, there's a third aspect of the Congo that I think is important. The reason I am so sincerely adamant about the need to begin to expand the concept of human security and replace ideas of sovereignty and replace ideas of national security for the protection of people also extends to the foreign assistance and development community itself, because it does have certain doctrines that are beginning to do this, such as the doctrines of beginning to intervene in humanitarian crisis, the right to protect. But these are not sufficient. They're not coherent, strategic, and consistent. And the Congo case shows it. And let me show you how 3 ways. Very sad. When you had the terrible genocide in Rwanda and the Interahamwe with the Hutus, who basically did the genocide, came into the Congo, refugee camps were set up. And under present understandings of protect, they actually protected Interahamwe. And you had Interahamwe organizing in the refugee communities for still carrying on the fight. And that's one of the things that got the Rwandans so upset. When the Rwandans came in to chase those Interahamwes, and they did, and they killed, and it wasn't nice, thousands of them, all of a sudden, the international community that stood back and watched the genocide in Rwanda, killing 400 to 800,000 people, got really upset at the possible massacre of 10,000 people and called for massive international investigations, which is one of the things that made Kabila think, hey, maybe I should switch sides because they're going to pick on the Rwandans now. And then when Kabila actually came to Kinshasa and actually tried to do a few things to make himself credible, like there was an incident where a soldier shot a Red Cross worker, Congolese, because he wanted to use the soccer field that was being used by the Red Cross, and the Congolese army saw it, arrested him, put him on a military trial, and shot him within 2 days. There was widespread amnesty groups and saying, oh, this violates human rights. This man should have had a right to an appeal trial. I mean, he was seen, he was tried by his peers, he appealed to his own institution, condemned him, and all the Congolese thought this was tremendous. For once a soldier was held responsible, the international people said, oh, it doesn't follow Western judicial procedures. So, and then the last thing, of course, was when the international community sat on its hands and basically let Mr. Kabila do away with the national conference, and all they did was say, let's send them a letter that says, this isn't really nice, could you please rethink it and maybe hold it later? And that's what they did. I a personal witness to it. So we have to come up with a doctrine that guides not only countries, but guides international development and those in international development. And human security is where that doctrine can be developed, perfected, and begin to address some of these concerns in a consistent and strategic manner.